Iowa early muzzleloader season started on a Saturday morning. My roommate and I got up as early as we dared and went out to a nice little piece of public hunting ground where we had been hunting squirrels the previous few weeks. The wind was just how we wanted it, and we found a good parking spot and walked in. During the first few minutes of shooting hours, we saw a handful of does that moved on into private ground and managed to find a nice little buck and some does in a clearing as we continued further. The little buck was already rutting hard and was chasing the does he was with. He offered me a nice shot, but I decided to give him a chance to grow a little bit bigger. After that, we sat for a while on the edge of the Skunk River and watched some big bucks move around on the other side. I hoped they would come across, but they wandered off and bedded down in the trees on the other side. The morning was still young, but we had surgery cats that needed checked on at a specific time, so we packed up and moved out. So, quick recap of what happened this morning. We got out to the public ground just perfect time. The wind was in the right direction. Everything was just as we calculated. We walked up on a handful of does right away. Didn't see any bucks with that group. We went a little bit further, came across another couple does, had to wade through some water to get over to some other public ground. Saw a couple decent bucks on private ground that we weren't able to get a shot at. We might go there and try to camp out tonight and see if they'll cross over to the private ground or public ground. Definitely had some shots on some doe and had a shot on a little 3x3 buck just inside his ears. It's kind of light, but he was pretty tall, so we are optimistic for the rest of the hunting season. That night, I returned to the same piece of ground to see if I could get a shot at those bigger bucks. Unfortunately, there was a person fishing on the sandbar right below the spot I wanted to sit at. I walked around the other side of the field to check a few draws while I waited for him to finish up, and then sat on the riverbank until dark. The bucks from that morning were still on their side of the river, but were showing some interest in some does. I figured it might be a good idea to try calling them over to our side in the morning. Second morning of muzzleloader season. You could probably tell we got a little bit of snow in the overnight. Kind of made the leaves all quiet down and stuff. Saw probably 15 to 20 deer. Got some nice shots on some does, but didn't see any shootable bucks at all. So we'll see what happens throughout the week. Chances of me getting out here before next weekend are probably pretty slim, but we'll see what happens. Needless to say, we decided to come out again the next morning. We skipped the first hour of classes, and it was more than worth it. We did some calling and had a buck and a doe come within 25 yards of us. This was the buck from opener morning that I decided was too young and too small, so I decided to pass him up again since it was only the third day of season. After that, we wandered on over through the river to some more public ground. We soaked our feet a little getting over there, but ran into a small buck and these two does that were having the time of their lives playing in the water. We saw a few more does on the way out, but no shootable bucks. I called it a week and put hunting on the hold until the next weekend. Unfortunately, the bow hunters really moved in that coming weekend. There were 4 vehicles parked in probably a quarter-mile stretch along the spot we had been hunting in. We decided not to push our luck and tried a different location we had scouted out a few weeks earlier. Because the new location was so bad, we got up really early to go back to our old spot. I tried a new route to the spot we sat at via water. We ended up soaking wet and freezing cold the rest of the morning, and didn't see a single deer. Frustrated, I decided to try a new spot for the evening hunt. So it's a Saturday after opener, so hunting season's been open for a week now. I'm running into a lot of problems with archery hunters on public ground. Last night we went to the spot that we've been hunting for the last week, and even before that during squirrel season. And there was some guys there with the minivan, and they walked the entire shelter belts. They walked all the trees, and there wasn't a deer left in there. We hunted there this morning. We got there super early, ran into another guy, talked to him, great guy, and we split up separate ways. Minivan guys showed up again, blew the whole thing. There wasn't a deer that we saw this morning. The joys of public ground, I guess. I am trying a different spot tonight. We'll see if I can get there before anybody else does. I'm leaving kind of early. Chances are there's already going to be archery hunters even at this other spot that I'm trying. But we can hope. Beware the minivan guys.
Amazingly, the new spot had no other hunters that night. I tried sitting in a tree for the first time in my life, and after staring death in the face a couple times, decided to ground hunt for the rest of the evening, before calling it quits at dark.
This is the last morning of hunting season, and I still haven't shot a deer. I went to a new spot last night and actually saw a decent number of deer. Passed on a doe right at the end of shooting hours. Probably should have taken it. So we'll see if we can connect with something this morning. I saw a little buck last night. Maybe there's a bigger buck in there. It's kind of, I'm at a dilemma whether to shoot the first thing that I come across, whether it's a doe or a buck, or walk around a little bit and see if I can find a buck. It's a nice little spot. We got a cornfield right next to a bunch of brush, so it could be really good. I'm out here early. There is nobody else out here. The wind is out of the right direction. There's a lot of promise. We'll see. Also, big shout out to one of my friends for letting me use his pickup, or as they call it in Michigan, a truck. It's a lot better than me sticking a doe in the trunk of my car. I was just prepared to get blood everywhere.
The morning was really quiet, but on my way out of the public ground, I looked into the adjacent private field and saw the biggest buck I'd seen this year. I tried calling him to my side, but to no avail. I watched him go into a nearby cornfield and decided to put all my eggs in one basket and to try to find him again that night. I decided to try sitting in a tree again and got there as early as I dared and sat for a few hours, accompanied by the occasional snowflake and an excited group of rooster pheasants that flew in right at dusk.
Oh man, I am done deer hunting, and I didn't get anything. Don't know why, but last night I was down at this spot and I got a shot at a doe. I passed it up right at dark because I was hoping I would find one this morning. This morning I saw a really nice buck, really nice, probably like 6 points on each side, and he was across the field on the wrong land, so I didn't shoot him. He was too far away anyway. And I saw where he went into the cornfield, and so I set up in a tree tonight waiting for him to come out, and I waited until just about dark, and I thought, well, I'll hopefully get a doe on the way back to the pickup. Halfway climbing down out of the tree, a doe comes out and just stares me down for like 3 minutes, and I just stood there really still, and finally she decided that I was not friendly and ran out into the field, and that buck was right behind her. Came out at probably 20 yards, just full dead run, right out into the private ground. Oh man. And so I didn't get him. And I walked back to the pickup, and it was just too dark, and I didn't see any deer at all. And so I am done with early muzzleloader season 2020 here in Iowa, and I didn't get anything. Hopefully that's not indicative of the way the rest of the fall is going to go. Whew. It was fun though. A lot of good stories, a lot of good times, but man, it would have been nice to get something.